Greetings, everyone, and welcome to The Reckoning. This morning, Colman Domingo was nominated for Best Actor at the Academy Awards for his portrayal of Bayard Rustin in 2023's Rustn. This nomination marks the first time that a black gay man has been nominated for a role playing a black gay man from history. This nomination is historic for LGBTQIA+ representation in Hollywood. Joining me today is The Reckoning's senior editor, Dr. Deion Hawkins. His article, Blazing Trails in Tinseltown, Colman Domingo Makes Black Queer History in Hollywood, is out now. Welcome to The Reckoning, Deion. Thank you so much for joining on this video version of our content. How are you?
I am great. Cold, but good morning. I'm happy to be here. How are you?
I am well. Cold as well, but making it through. It's a lot of snow outside, but it's all not that in here. So that's cool. From his portrayal of Bayard Rustin to Mr. in the Color Purple, 2023 was just like a banner year for Colman Domingo. I really tried to think of this. I can't think of a black gay man who's out getting such universal praise as an actor. So just a very general question. From your perspective, what makes this the right time for a leading man like a Colman Domingo?
Thank you for opening up this conversation. So the first thing I'll say is also, to my knowledge, this is the first time that it's been an openly black gay character or black gay man that has had this much accolades and attention in Hollywood. We may have it in music or other ways, but it's very rare in my experience that this has happened in Hollywood. And so I would just like to agree with you on there. The second thing I'd like to say too on this is Colman Domingo has been working for a very long time. And I really want to highlight that is that a lot of times when we see people in Hollywood have like breakout roles, so to speak, they really have been grinding for a long time. And so Colman Domingo has a Tony nomination. He has an Emmy Award from working in Euphoria. And so on one hand, I think it's important to note that it's the actor that brought the story to life. And it's the actor that this could have been the same exact script, the same exact director. But I think it's something about Colman Domingo and his range. So if we think about something like his character he played in Euphoria to Mr. To playing one of the most historic, undervalued historical figures in our time, those are all three drastically different characters. And so I also think that Colman Domingo was really for the moment because he showed the ability to play various types of characters in a range that a lot of Hollywood doesn't have in general, not just gay actors, but straight actors as well.
Absolutely. Totally agree with that. We're in this interesting moment right now. We're in this moment of intense polarization politically. There's all of this misinformation and disinformation. You specifically talk in your article about Rustn being the perfect movie for this time. So can you talk about why this film itself and Domingo's portrayal of Bayard Rustin is resonating at this moment?
Yeah, so I'll start with the second part first to talk about why Domingo's portrayal of Bayard Rustin is resonating. So the first thing is I tell people, if you've never seen real footage of Bayard Rustin, you have to see it because the way that he speaks, his gestures, even the way that he molds his face, Colman Domingo really embodied. I remember back in the early 2000s when we saw like Jamie Foxx embody Ray, and it was like this feels like we are watching Ray Charles on screen, not a like actor that has been brought to the screen. I felt the same thing with Colman Domingo. And again, for me, it was the tone of voice and the conviction in which Rustin spoke with. Colman Domingo had an impeccable and amazing ability to really, I think, nail down the conviction and the ability of Bayard to be able to captivate a room. if we think about why this movie at this moment, it is no surprise to many people that we're really at the center of a multitude of culture wars right now, right? So we have a literal record number of anti-LGBTQIA legislation that was just ushered in 2023. We know that there's hundreds already on the docket for 24. We also know that critical race theory, racial justice is at the forefront of misinformation. Just last week, we had presidential hopefuls say that America has never been a racist country, right? And so we have a film that is literally all about the intersection of what it is like to experience multiple marginalization, including racism. And so for me, I think it's the perfect film for the moment because it's just so unapologetic in its mission and it's so unapologetic in being Black and centering the queer aspect. And I think that both of those communities, especially if you're at the intersection, we're at a point that we want something that's unapologetically us because resistance and visibility is key right now because the misinformation is so high that we need a movie like this to be visible to kind of serve as that antidote to that toxic misinformation.
One of the quotes in your article is, "History is not just a record of past events. It sets the platform for our current social consciousness and values." What do you hope that Rustn does for the future of Black queer filmmakers as well as actors?
So I think it's important to note that for me, it is a textbook example of what happens when it is a Black queer person able to embody a Black queer character. So if we look at throughout history, the few times that Black queer people have been awarded at award shows or Black queer narratives have been awarded at award shows, it's rarely if they're playing a Black queer person. And it's also rare that if they are playing a Black queer person, that the Black queer person is rooted in history. And so I think all of those things make Rustn incredibly unique. So I think it opens up the door for screenwriters to be able to re-envision, further stories to tell that we haven't told about Black queer people. I think for studios, it shows that you can lean into these sorts of stories. I think for producers, it says that these sorts of stories will sell. And there's a huge misrepresentation or there's an underrepresentation of Black queer writers, Black queer directors, Black queer producers all throughout Hollywood. And so I would be hopeful that this would be an example of a big budget or a big project studio being able to lean into it, showing other people it's possible and why it's important to keep doing so.
My final question for you, based on what you're seeing, of course, we have Rustn. We are anticipating a James Baldwin film, which Billy Porter is attached to and leading. How do you foresee the representation of Black queer folks evolving in Hollywood kind of over the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh, that's a great question. So first I will start off by saying is that I'm hopeful that this can be evidence of tide turning, but also I'm not delusional to the state of, unfortunately, how things maybe operate. And so we know that the limited data that we have from GLAAD and other organizations, things like that, look at Hollywood representation, that there really is underrepresentation of the narratives. And even when Black queer stories are being told, it's not always Black queer people writing them or even Black queer people in the room to be a part of that conversation. So for me, I would be hopeful that this could be a long-term trend to show that there's brilliance, there's magic, there is a lot of captivation, engagement when you allow Black writers to capture a Black experience and you allow a Black queer actor to bring that character to life. I think that if we look at trends, especially if we look at populations changing, things like that, I think that Gen Z, is inevitably going to want more diverse films. I think when we have an area of constant information on social media, the ability to bring stories to life in a new way, I think is going to be more important. You know, some people may not, everyone's not going to read a book, but some people may go see a movie about someone. And so if I think about the opportunities, there's tons of opportunities for Black gay people, Black queer people to get involved in the process. I think the conversation is what are the barriers that we know exist already to allowing Black gay brilliance to flourish in Hollywood.
Dr. Deion Hawkins, thank you so much for joining me here today on The Reckoning. And I definitely want folks to go and check out your article. Thank you so much.
Thank you.